38th Contact. Thursday, November 13th, 1975, 9:36 a.m. The below explanation from Quetzal provides further clarification about Giza Intelligences and their specific influence on Earth peoples. Quetzal says, "Be greeted, my friend. It is an edifying joy for me to be able to come to you another time. This time I will give you explanations that Meier has spoken about with you in relation to the events surrounding Sharon, who in truth was named Erasik and who carries further names yet. So then, follow my words exactly and comprehend what I have to say to you. Every form of life is subject to the change of progressive evolution. Subsequently it lacks cognitions and truth. Negative and positive powers become transformed in the balance and therewith, thus, in the power of life and constancy. The path of evolution is very long and burdensome, and it is marked by many kinds of external influences. In particular, the influences of the same kind of forms of life exert powers over a single form of life which this form of life is only able to control through living through greater spaces of time and teachings, from which understanding and recognition result. This course of evolution belongs to the high and highest forms of life just as it does also to low and the lowest forms. This is a creational law of evolution, which possesses its validity for all times, and it is never subject to any kind of alterations. That is why this law also has validity for Erasik, who, out of certain grounds, is known to you from accounts as Sharon. Because, therefore, also he is subject to this law, like all his co-workers and also those who were before him. Understanding and recognition for them is, and was, ineluctable. Even though it has also lasted a very long time, indeed, the point in time came when certain things had to change through the progression of recognition of the truth. In connection with Erasik, concerning the direct and indirect, there is the following: Erasik, alias Sharon, and so forth, is, as far as the fulfillment of his apportioned mission is concerned, the leader of an assembly of intelligences consisting of thousands of individuals, who, until years ago, stood under the direct force command of the world control-seeking Komagal. Erasik and Komagal are, according to their blood association, cousins, as it is named by you. But Komagal is the leader and ruler over a splinter group of many thousands of descendants who, in earlier times, were separated, which means that this group had been separated by those powers who, earlier, possessed the control over your earth and whose highest leader was Nshwish. As it has always been, however, power struggles and lust for power also ruled among them, as unfortunately is characteristic of the human form of life in its course of evolution. One of the most greedy for power at that time was Asum, who, with a group of many thousand individuals of the actual size of the group of the celestial sons who had already become peaceful, withdrew and went his own way with the mind to make the earth and its forms of life subordinate. His way of obtaining his goal was that of lies and deceit, of misleading and wrongly teaching in the form of cultic false teaching, which he was able to very skillfully weave into the religious teaching. Through emissaries and earth humans who had succumbed to him, he mixed these teachings among the earth humans, whereby he soon won many followers of his false teaching. It was primarily the gypsies on the Nile and in the further vicinity of the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, who fanatically hung on his false teaching and began to spread it. But the Hebraeans, because it was they, freed themselves later from this rule, as Asum had to cede control to his successor, who was then named Jehovah, and so forth, in the tongue of the earth people. Having grown in the number of their people, the Hebraeans created their own power and selected themselves as chosen ones. They assumed for themselves the right to be qualified for world control and to be worthy as chosen people, although they were never a people, rather only a low human group of gypsies of all kinds of colors and races who had come together. But since the events of that time, they led, unauthorized, as first ones, as justified before others to rule the earth, faithful to the models who wanted to slap the entire earth into servitude. Thereby they became renegades, as also were their models, who now from their side, had to seek new ways to realize their wishes for power. They found these ways then also through Quetzal I, who succeeded Jehovah, who had assumed the name of Anshwish. Like no ruler before, Quetzal I forced all terrestrial religions into the frame of blood-demanding cults which, unfortunately, were able to be maintained on the earth up to the current time. In spite of many efforts of the righteous celestial sons, they were not able to prohibit his evil machinations. Therefore he could grasp the cultic religions around himself more and control the world. Mighty in many kinds of technical and consciousness-related resources and powers, Quetzal's assembly was able to force the earth humans into its power and completely lead them into a cultic religion confusion. However, also Quetzal I could not assert his position of power because, after he had created for himself a center and a headquarters deep under the surface of the pyramids of Giza, he was overthrown and disempowered by his own son, Quetzal II. In many things he was even more malicious than his father, which he also soon proved through the introduction of monstrous mass killings of earth people. Very many bloody events on the earth which were carried out through the cultic religions, in truth, concern the will and the influencing of Quetzal II. He and his assembly have become known, in circles in the know, as the Giza Intelligences. This is because they maintain their actual command center there and guide all events from there. Many kinds of efforts were undertaken to prepare an end for this command center and the driving force of this malicious assembly. Yet that has basically failed up until now, because they have secured everything so much that effective alterations could only be obtained with malicious illogical force, which is not allowed to us and all others who are oriented regarding these facts. Quetzal I now selected one of his cousins as the authority over a group of thousands of individuals which he had a quite special mission to fulfill, or would have had. This mission was essentially based on the teleonotic guiding of various groups of humans of Usus descent in certain paths, in particular in Germany, America, Argentina and Brazil, in order that they unconsciously perform help for the plans of Quetzal. During the first time period, Iosik, therefore Ashtasharon and whatever his other names may yet be, followed these orders unconditionally, so thereby Quetzal allocated further great power. But in the course of time he obtained many kinds of understanding and modified his behavior. Until then, he acted only according to the orders of Quetzal, so he only modified his tactic noticeably and thereby influenced, firstly, his assembly, which he indeed required. By and by he obtained their trust, and they acknowledged him as their actual leader. So it was an easy game for him to, by and by, include the obtained understanding of the truth and also to behave according to it, even with the knowledge of his assembly. With their acquiescence they loosened themselves from the control of Quetzal and formed a new splinter group. That happened in the Earth year 1933,